This is Michael Swain, Executive Director of Freedom of Religion South Africa for SA, with my colleague, Attorney Daniela Ellerbeck, our legal advisor, with an update on a number of different issues and pieces of legislation that we are currently dealing with and which have the potential to negatively impact the right to religious freedom in various different ways. So, Daniela, let's just start with the sudden focus on terrorism. There are two bills in process. They are supposed to address the potential threat to terrorism and to prevent it being financed through this country. So maybe you can tell us what is happening now. What are the primary concerns from a religious freedom perspective? And start off with the anti-money laundering bill.
All right, so Michael, the anti-money laundering bill closed for comment on Tuesday, the 25th of October. So, and 4SA ran quite a campaign alerting people to it. The goal of the bill is obviously to prevent money being laundered to finance terrorist activities. Great goal. Problem is the way the bill was to do that. So the bill proposes changes to a variety of existing laws, such as the Companies Act, the Non-Profit Organizations Act, the Financial Intelligence Center Act, and so forth. Problems of the proposals to the Non-Profit Organization Act. The reason for this is that up until now, registering as an NPO with the Department of Social Development has been voluntary. So the fact that religious organizations fall within the NPO Act's definition of what an NPO is hasn't really been problematic because, yes, you're a voluntary association or a trust or a nonprofit company, but you're not obliged to register with the DSD. In terms of this anti-money laundering bill, there would be compulsory registration with the DSD, okay? Which means all of a sudden you now have an additional administrative and financial burden being placed on religious organizations. The second concern is that if you don't register with the DSD and you fail to adhere to, for example, the filing of the narrative report and all the other reporting administrative duties that an NPO that's registered with the DSD has to comply with, you face criminal sanctions. So now literally you're talking about sending pastors to jail for failing to adhere to administrative requirements. And probably the third and biggest concern is the regulation of the state regulation of religion. Because in terms of the NPO Act, when an organization applies to register as an NPO of the DSD has the power to ask that that organization amend its founding documents when it comes to things like who can be a member, when membership gets terminated, who can be a leader, what the duties of leaders are, when leadership gets terminated, and so forth. Now, the problem with this is that might all be fine for, the shop around the corner that operates a feeding scheme. But when it comes to religious organizations, we know that from a religious freedom point of view, many religious organizations' founding documents, when it comes to things like membership, who can be a leader, and so forth, those are based on religious beliefs and religious tenets, and religious ethics and doctrines. So for religious organizations, these prescribe who can be a member, and people have their membership revoked if they're no longer adherent to the faith. So literally the bill in its current form will allow the state to tell religious organizations how to run their internal affairs and therefore what to believe and how to believe it. And this is state regulation of religion. So those are the top three concerns in the anti-money laundering bill.
Wow, they are definitely legitimate concerns. And let's just move right along to the Terrorist and Related Activities Amendment Bill. Again, you would think that these terrorism bills would really have little or nothing to do with religion because religious people are typically not terrorists, please God. But tell us then, what are our headline concerns with this Terrorist and Related Activities Amendment Bill?
So this bill was opened until the 18th of October for comment. So it closed last week at the time of this recording. And this bill has two religious freedom concerns. The first being the wide definition of terrorist activity. Literally, the definition of terrorist activity runs over 2 pages in length in the bill. And it includes numerous vague and undefined phrases, such as serious public emergency and general insurrection. Now, for neither of these phrases, criteria are given, neither is a definition given. So we're really left in the dark, which is concerning because this also means that this ambiguous phrase is open for abuse. And given that civil society organizations that help facilitate public comment in what is a participatory democracy have recently been labeled by government as quote unquote instigating terrorism and quote unquote sabotage, the unintended consequences of the bill could legitimately be to criminalize the voices of those opposing government action, and it will curb society's dialogue, again, in what is supposed to be a participatory democracy. Linking onto the first concern of the wide definition for terrorist activity is the criminalization of terrorism-related content. So the bill proposes, amongst other things, to criminalize the possession and distribution of whatever is deemed to be terrorism-related content. Now, given that terrorist activity has a wide definition, many things will become terrorism-related content. Again, very problematic, because if voices opposing and critiquing the government are at some point is deemed to be terrorist activity, this will result that the possession and or online sharing of any content from these organizations by people will be seen as a crime, with the bill imposing up to 5 years in jail. So those are the two concerns for the terrorism and related activities bill.
Yeah, I know that we're always concerned with what we call the unintended consequences, and we don't ever attribute sort of bad intention to government in the way that they draft the legislation. But unfortunately, the net consequence is often that religious freedom gets impacted. People get caught in a net, which typically they should not be caught in, because they should be free to express, obviously, their faith and to live it out and to pass it on to their children and everything like that. So maybe just move right on to the hate speech bill. I mean, this has been around for a long time. I know we've been involved in it for at least 5 years now. Where are we now in this process, and what are 4SA's remaining concerns that we would like to see addressed before this bill becomes law, if at all?
So the hate speech bill, and I'll be brief on that, as 4SA, we've done a whole video series on concerns with the bill, being the fact that it's easier to be sent to jail than to be ordered to apologize, the fact that the religious exemption clause needs strengthening, and so forth. And we'll link that down in the description of this video as well, so people can view that video series. But just an update that the bill is currently in front of the first House of Parliament, so it's with the National Assembly, where after it will go to the National Council of Provinces. The National Assembly has called for public comment and is currently considering the public comment and working on the bill. I got a notification today, the time of this recording is Tuesday, the 25th of October. I got a notification today that the Parliamentary Committee tasked with working on the bill will be meeting on the bill again tomorrow morning. So a further update will follow tomorrow morning after that meeting.
Good. And then lastly, and perhaps by no means least, we met this morning with the Department of Basic Education, and they are developing, or a subgroup within the Department of Education is developing a SOGI guideline, sexual orientation and gender identity guideline, which they intend to roll out into public schools in March 2023. We've had sight of it. We engaged with them this morning. Maybe let's highlight some of the concerns that we have and let us know what's happening with that process as we move forward.
So Michael and viewers, we had a wonderful meeting with the DBE this morning, who were very open to the concerns 4SA raised, which is the fact that the guidelines don't make adequate provision for other constitutional rights. And we explained to them that all these constitutional rights attach to every single person, and how a person lives that out, obviously, is going to be different, because for example, my right to religious freedom attaches to me equally as your right to religious freedom. But what each of us chooses to have beliefs, opinions, thoughts, religious beliefs and conscience convictions on will be different. So we explained to them how the guidelines need to actually allow for everyone to take their thoughts and beliefs and opinions and convictions into public schools. We're very pleased that the department said that they want to publicly consult on this document and allow 4SA to share it with our constituency. They have said that they will accept comments until the 31st of December. 4SA will start the process of working through the guidelines from a legal technical point of view, because really this meeting with the department this morning was to just give them the big header constitutional concerns that we had. And then after that, we will engage with our constituency about a public participation process with the DBE on these guidelines to ensure that parental rights, the right to religious freedom, the right to freedom of expression, all of those rights that attach to everyone equally is practically dealt with in these guidelines, so that we end up with schools that allow everyone to live out what they believe and how they want to live out their life, and complete their schooling with no harassment or bullying, but in a way that doesn't impose a specific belief, thought, opinion on everyone else.
Wonderful. Well, we hope that you found this update interesting. For more information, obviously, please go to the forsa.org.za website. You can follow us on Facebook at Freedom of Religion SA. We have, of course, our 4SA YouTube channel that we're using more and more. But please particularly consider how you can partner financially with us. We literally are dependent upon voluntary contributions to do what we do, to be the watchman on the wall, to help to make sure that your rights are protected and that you're informed. So thank you so much for watching, and we will be giving another update in due course.
Good day. This is Daniela Ellerbeck, the Legal Advisor to Freedom of Religion South Africa. Remember to like and share this video, and then click on the subscribe button to make sure you never miss our video updates on vital religious freedom issues.